YouTube, welcome back to LadyGi. Thanks so much for joining me again. Today's video, we're going to be talking about your first Brazilian Jiu Jitsu class. This is a highly requested video. So if you are looking to join a Jiu Jitsu Academy, you're a little nervous, you don't know what to expect in your first class, I'm going to get straight into it. So let's get going. Now, everything that I'm going to list today is going to depend on the academy and your region and where you are in the world. So just take it with a grain of salt. Every academy is going to be different. They're all going to have their own policies. They might have different procedures, different onboarding procedures, etc., etc. But this is generally what you can expect. So number one, you want to make sure that you arrive on time. A very good friend told me once that to arrive on time is to be late, and to arrive early is to be on time. So make sure that you know exactly what time class starts. Give yourself at least 15-20 minutes between getting there, getting dressed, getting changed if you need to shower, etc. So make sure that you are arriving on time. If you have long hair, make sure it's tied or braided back. Fingernails and toenails should be trimmed. Any jewelry, watches, anything like that, like any kind of accessories, should be removed. You should keep them at home. Most academies will not allow you to train with any kind of jewelry. I know a lot of people feel like their jewelry is like a part of them. They can't really take it off. You might be asked to tape over it, or because of safety, you might be asked to remove it altogether. The thing with jewelry is that if you're wearing an earring or a nose ring, for example, and it gets caught on someone's gi, or it gets caught in someone's hair, if they pull back, it's gonna rip right out of your skin. So it's just a safety precaution. So make sure that you take that stuff out and leave it at home. Now, this is across all academies. No footwear is allowed on the mats whatsoever. You are going to be barefooted on the mats. So make sure that you are prepared for that. So if you need to, again, clip your toenails, make sure those are clipped. Make sure that your feet are washed. You don't want to be tracking dirt inside of the academy. If you're somebody who works outdoors and maybe like it's summertime and you're doing a lot of yard work, just make sure that you're nice and clean before entering the mat space. If you're lucky, your academy might have a shower facility available, so you can always just jump in to the shower, rinse off, and then get into your gi. You also might want to wear flip-flops or clean slippers when you're walking around the academy. A lot of academies might have this as a rule where when you leave the mat space, you put on your flip-flops if you go to use the bathroom, and that way you're not using dirty feet in the bathroom and then bringing all of that crud back onto the mats. Most academies are going to be very finicky when it comes to cleanliness, so just make sure that you are clean, make sure that you've showered. If you're working outside a lot, or if you have a labor-intensive job that makes you sweat a lot, just make sure that you're nice and clean before entering the mat space, and make sure that your gi is nice and clean as well. So make sure that it's washed, it smells good. So don't be cooking with it, or don't leave it in an area close to your kitchen at home, because you don't want your gi to smell. You don't want to be that smelly person on the mats, because trust me, you're going to be known as that person and everybody's going to know. So just make sure that you yourself and the clothing that you wear, even if it's no gi, make sure that it's nice and clean. Speaking of gis, if you have a hand-me-down gi from a friend, maybe somebody lent it to you, make sure you understand the gi policy at your academy. Some academies might have a policy where you're not allowed to wear another academy's gi. So if you have a logo, so I have a logo here. So if you have a logo from another academy, your jiu-jitsu academy that you're training at might not allow you to train with that gi on. Some places are very strict about it and they might make you wear one of their gis. So just be prepared for that. Some academies might have like a free gi policy that they'll just lend you a gi. I know a lot of them do charge a rental fee, and that just takes care of the washing. Some schools might also be so particular that they'll only allow you to wear a white gi. Sometimes they only allow the instructors to wear a colored gi. Some academies might not like it if you're wearing a different colored top with different bottoms. So for example, if you're wearing like a blue gi top with white pants, some academies might not allow that. Some academies might not care. They might let you wear like purple, neon green gis. Some might not have a standard gi policy, but a lot of them do. So just make sure you understand what the policy is, especially if you are planning on signing up and if you want to order your own gi online. Just make sure that you know exactly what the gi policy is before making any of those purchases. Now, when you're entering the mat space, every school is going to be different. Some jiu-jitsu schools are a little bit more traditional than others. So you'll soon notice that some people are bowing before they're entering the mat space, and some people will bow before they exit the mat space. Bowing is more of a form of respect. So you're respecting the training area, you're respecting the place of learning. Traditionally in the martial arts, the dojo or the training area is a very sacred and special place because that's where you go as a student, that's where knowledge is being kept, that's where knowledge is being passed from the instructor to the student. So traditionally that space is going to be very sacred, and respect is something that's observed. And one of the ways that a lot of martial arts will observe respect is by bowing to the mat space. Now, some people might have like religious reasons as to why they're opposed to bowing, but just remember it all comes down towards your intention. If you're not comfortable bowing, talk to the instructor. If it's a policy and you have to bow, again, some places might be a little bit more traditional than others. Just have a chat with them. For us, it's more of an optional thing, but some academies might have a policy on that. Now, most jiu-jitsu schools will make you line up at the beginning of class and at the end of class. The lineup is going to be very particular. Traditionally in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the highest ranking belt, so the more experienced people will be away from the entrance of the academy, so they'll be away from the door. And the lower ranking belts, or if you're brand new, you're gonna be lining up closest to the entrance of the academy. The reason for that is traditionally, so like long ago, we're talking about years and years and years ago, they always had people lining up this way because if an intruder were to walk in, the lower ranking belts were supposed to protect the higher ranking belts from the intruder. And the thought process behind that is that they wanted to make sure that the knowledge that the higher belts had was preserved. So if an intruder were to come and injure that person or hurt them in any way, that knowledge that they had would be diminished and that knowledge wouldn't be able to be passed on. So you'll still see that a lot of jiu-jitsu academies, we do this too, and it's just more of like a tradition now. The higher ranks are going to be lining up away from the door and the lower ranks are going to be more closer to the entrance of the academy. So at the bow-in, so the bow-in is when you are getting ready for class. At the start of class, there's a lineup that's called the bow-in. You'll notice that the instructor, now again, this is in some academies, so this varies. In some academies, the instructor will stand closer to the higher ranking belts. And depending on how they're lined up, if they're lined up in rows or if they're in one straight line, the higher ranking belts will be closest to the instructor when they're addressing them. At my academy, we always do one straight lineup and the instructor kind of stands in the middle of the line, like facing the line. And we'll do a quick bow-in and then we'll start the warm-up. If you come late to class and the bow-in's already happened, some academies might make you wait off the mats and you'll be allowed to enter the mats once the instructor allows you to enter the mats. So if you come late, out of respect, you need to wait. You can't just jump into line. Some academies might be very particular about that. So just make sure that you ask, especially if you know that, maybe the bus is running late and you're not able to make it there on time. Just let your instructor know what the situation is with you so that at least they know. Usually after the bow-in, the warm-up will start. A lot of times, if you're brand new, the instructor might partner you up with someone who is more experienced. That way they can guide you throughout the class. Again, this is going to vary from school to school. Some instructors might not care and they'll allow you to partner up with anyone, but some instructors might make sure that you're well taken care of. So if you come in there with a friend expecting to partner up with that friend, that might not be the case that day. If you're partnered up with a higher ranking belt, just remember, they're there to help you, they're there to guide you, so that's not the time to tell them what you know about jiu-jitsu and what you saw online or what you saw on TV. Just allow them to guide you because that's what they're there for. Don't be a spazzy white belt. There's a joke in jiu-jitsu that white belts are more deadly than even black belts because they come in with this mentality that they have to crush everyone, that they have to be as aggressive as possible, they don't stick to technique, they're thrashing around, they're using a lot of strength, and they're just injuring everyone that they come into contact with. That's a joke. There's memes about it. There's videos about it. Go and check it out. Don't be the spazzy white belt because you will be labeled as the spazzy white belt. Try to remember that you're there to learn. Try to stick to the technique that the instructor is teaching Again, like I said before, that's not the time to start telling your opponents what you saw on TV, what you saw on YouTube. Just make sure that you're sticking to the technique and you're sticking to what's being taught. When it's time to roll, you are not allowed to grab fingers. You're not allowed to grab the face. You're not allowed to pull hair. You're not allowed to squeeze the life out of your partner when you're in guard. You're just going to inflict a lot of pain on your partner and you're just going to piss a lot of people off. You have to remember that jiu-jitsu means the gentle way or the gentle art. And yes, we are learning how to do chokes and arm bars and leg locks and things like that. But as a beginner, you need to slow down. You need to take it slow. You need to calm down. There's no need to rush. There's no need to be fast and aggressive. You're just learning and you need to understand the basics before you start using a little bit of strength and speed. The most annoying thing to higher ranking belts is when a new white belt comes in and they start telling them what their buddy taught them in their basement or what they saw on YouTube, and they're trying to execute it and they have no idea what the hell they're doing. So just stick to the technique that's being taught. Now, when it comes to asking other belts if you want to roll, so if you're not familiar with the term roll, rolling is what we call sparring in jiu-jitsu, and that's usually done in the last portion of the class. So you'll start with the bow in, followed by the warm-up, followed by the technique, drilling, and then you normally roll at the end of class. Most jiu-jitsu schools that are more traditional will follow this rule. A white belt or a lower ranking belt is not allowed to ask a higher ranking belt to roll. Now, this is a very traditional policy, I guess, or practice. Not all academies are going to practice this. I know at our academy, you can ask anyone to roll. The instructor does not mind if you ask them to roll and you're a white belt. If you're watching this and you're coming to Affinity Academy, you're totally allowed to do that. But some jiu-jitsu schools might be very strict. So lower ranking belts are not allowed to ask senior belts to roll. However, a higher, more senior belt is allowed to ask a lower ranking belt to roll. And if they ask you to roll, you're not allowed to refuse. So the etiquette there is that you need to wait around and wait to be asked by a senior belt, because that's seen as like a privilege. If you're unsure what the policy is, just ask. And just remember that that practice is not there to make you feel bad as the new person in the room. It's a sign of discipline and respect for someone who's more senior than you and for someone that has more skill and more knowledge than you. Now, if you start rolling with your partner and you start colliding into other people, if you're a lower rank belt, you have to move away from that group. So let's say you're training with another white belt and there are two purple belts that are rolling next to you. You crash into their space. You have to get up and move and reset somewhere else. The higher ranks can stay where they are. This happens a lot when you're training, and this is a pretty general rule of thumb in most jiu-jitsu academies. We do this in our academy. So if I'm rolling with another senior belt and white belts crash into us, I'll politely ask the white belts to move to a new spot. And that's even if they enter my training area or if I enter their training area, they still have to move because they're a lower rank than me. Okay, this one's a huge one. Just because you are a black belt in another martial art does not give you the right to question the instructor. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from other black belts from like karate, and I can't remember what the other, there was a Japanese jiu-jitsu dude that came once, and the guy was super disrespectful. Karate guy just kept referencing everything to karate. Now, there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but after a while, you just need to accept that jiu-jitsu and other martial arts are very different. Yes, there's going to be similarities. Yes, there's going to be inferences that you can make, but just respect what your instructor is saying and just accept that they are different martial arts. So yeah, that also means that if you are a black belt in another martial art, if you start jiu-jitsu, you have to start as a white belt, because again, you're learning something new. You kind of have to put all of that pride and that ego aside, and you have to start learning as a new white belt. At the end of class, do not skip the lineup. It's a sign of respect if you stay until the end of class and join the lineup. You can't just take off and leave because you need to rush home and have dinner with your family, because everyone needs to rush home and have dinner with their family. The lineup at the end of class is part of the class, and that's the instructor's way of concluding the class. So make sure that you don't skip the line up. Now in the martial arts, it's very common for students to help clean the mats at the end of class. You were there as a student, you were there training, you were sweating on the mats, so you should stay and try to help clean at the end of class. Always make sure that you ask what the cleaning procedure is, because every academy is gonna have a different procedure and the way of doing things. Maybe they're not cross-contaminating with certain cleaning supplies, like different vacuums on different surfaces. So if you're unsure, just ask, but make sure that you do help out to clean every once in a while and you're not leaving it to the same people every single time. Take all of your belongings home with you. Don't leave anything at the academy. It is super annoying when people treat the academy like their own personal bedroom. As a business owner, it is really irritating when people leave their socks, their hoodies, like their backpacks. Take your shit home. Don't leave it at the academy. It is not your personal bedroom. Take everything home. Sometimes, of course, if you're in a rush, you might leave something here and there, which is fine, but don't make a habit of leaving stuff at the academy. It's very inconsiderate because you have to remember other people are using that space as well. So just make sure that you take your stuff home. When you get home, make sure you wash everything that you wore and make sure that you shower immediately. Do not leave your gi to wash for the next day. Even if you didn't sweat and you're not a person that sweats a lot, somebody else was sweating and their sweat got into your gi. You don't want that to sink in. You don't want to be that person that spread ringworm in your academy. So just make sure that you are showering and washing your gi immediately after class. All right, guys, so there you have it. Those are my tips for new white belts who are looking to train in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Hopefully this video was helpful. Give it a thumbs up if it was, and you guys will catch me in my next video. Bye.